Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Day in the Life of podcast. It's Eve and Payden, and we cannot wait to share our journey with you all through this podcast. We're so excited. This is episode 1. So yeah. So our first episode, we kind of talked about it the other day. We wanted to start where we were, and we wanted to kind of do a day in the life of a girl who wants to grow her relationship with Jesus. And so we're just going to jump right into it. And so, we both grew up in Christian homes and we've known Jesus our whole lives.
Yep.
But we also know that there's a big struggle right now in finding that relationship and, figuring out what that looks like with him. So I know for me personally, I went through so many deep, dark things that, made me turn to Jesus. But honestly, it started in little steps. Like for me, growing up and then just having little tugs and pulls. And then finally, I still struggle with it today. And I still see glimpses of sometimes where I struggle to find that relationship with him, but I always work at it. And, you can start with small steps and that lead to bigger ones. It always doesn't have to be a big change. So,
yeah, I think a lot of times because I felt like I was alone in this, but the more that I talk to people, the more that I realize that everybody kind of feels this way. When you grow up in a Christian household, you believe in Jesus your entire life, like you grow up just knowing stories about him, but as you need him and as you start to build your relationship with him, you see it differently. Like you start to actually have a relationship rather than just believing in him. And so just because I'm 19 years old, just because my relationship didn't start with him until I started to get in high school doesn't mean that I never believed in him previously. And so I think I struggled a lot with accepting that I finally started my relationship with Jesus, because I was like, well, I believe, I was scared, I was like, God, I believed in you the whole time. I believed in you, but I wasn't living my life for him.
Right. And honestly, I think that's such a big deal in our generation right now, is because honestly, you look and you're like, oh, Christianity, she's that Jesus girl. And you're kind of like, what does that mean? What does that entail? Like, why is that looked down upon because I'm a Christian? And I think that's such a fine line in our generation. And it honestly kind of prevents us from having that relationship with him, because we're still living the way that we used to live. We're still living in sin, which we're never going to get away from, but you can improve yourself and try to be the best person you can be. But I think in this time period, it's almost looked down upon, and you almost, you get scared and you feel like you're going to be made fun of or embarrassed because you believe in Jesus, which is absolutely insane.
Or even just in my circumstances, I don't want to say a control freak, but I'm kind of on the line. And so if something starts to go a way that I don't want it to, or if something's a mess, sometimes I'm scared to give it to God, because I'm like, what if he changes my plans? What if what he has is different than what I have planned? And am I willing to let that go, Yeah. But it ends up so much greater. And that kind of brings me to one of the notes that I had made for today. So in Matthew 8, it's when the story of when Jesus is leaving the boat with his disciples and he gets onto land, and there's 2 demon-possessed men, and they're the demons are just terrified of God, or they're terrified of God. And so they're begging Jesus to release them into the pigs that are herded next door. And so Jesus accepts their wish and he releases them into those pigs. Well, those pigs pretty much commit suicide and just run down into the waves. And so they drowned. And the people that were watching over the pigs end up saying, so it says the whole town went out to meet Jesus. And when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. And I just think that that's so crazy, because you read that and they asked Jesus to leave. They asked the savior of the universe to leave. But it was because those pigs were everything they had. And they were scared that since they were now gone, that the miracles Jesus was performing was going to have a negative impact on them. But he was able to make blind men see, and he was able to make paralyzed men walk. So imagine if they approached him differently and accepted him, how much greater that would have impacted their community rather than just dissing him and making him leave.
No, absolutely. He always has a greater plan, for sure. And I have dealt with this my entire life. I've always thought I was supposed to be doing something, and I would be scared to give it to God because honestly, it was a big prevention for me from growing my relationship with Jesus because I thought I knew it was best. Obviously not, but
Or you're like, God, show me a sign. Yeah, I know. Show me another sign. That's not what you mean.
yeah, sorry, that's not right. What do you mean? Like, we know better.
Yeah.
But no, literally, it has been one of the biggest and hardest things that I have had to learn in my relationship with him is that I have to let things go. I literally just had something really personal happen this past week where it's really going to change the rest of my life. And, at this point, in my heart and my soul, and I know now that I need to give it to him. And, I keep hearing the word trust. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust him with what he has planned for my life because it's not mine, it's his. And I want to do everything I can to work in his glory,
Yeah, but I think that brings up a lot of how do you know it's God? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How do you get to a point where you can tell that it's God speaking and it's not just like your brain? You know what I mean? Like so
it's a big struggle.
Yeah, it's every day it changes too because it's still like it's a repeating pattern. You just have to put on your big girl pants and get into the word. It's like the main thing that I do if I'm struggling is I'll call people that I know have Jesus in their life and I'll just be like, will you pray for me? Like, I need to know if this is what God has, please have him give me a sign. And a lot of what I've been praying for recently is for me to know God's voice. Like, I just been like, God, I just want you. Like, I just want to learn you so much that there's no doubt in my mind whether this is me being a control freak or whether this is you, giving me that feeling that, no, Payden, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so I called you one day not too long ago because I had been praying God, let me get better about talking to you so that I know what you sound like. But I was still scared kind of to pray out loud. It was just a thing that I was like, this is just no, it feels weird. I feel anxious. And so I just kind of put it off and I was just not doing, I was praying in my head, but I'm like, why are you I don't want to say embarrassed, but it's a bit you just feel weird about it.
Yeah.
And so there was one day that I was getting into my car and I've never had any problems out of my car before, ever. And I get in and my music won't turn on, nothing is happening. And I just moved. So I have a 30-minute drive to work. And I was like, what do I do? And then I was like, God wants me to pray. He asked me to pray out loud to him right now. And I just knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started to just pray for every single person I knew. I just prayed out loud just to get used to praying. I was just going down the list. I was like, God, I pray for my sister. I pray for Eve. I pray for my mom. I pray for my dad. And I got so far down in the list that I was naming off every single coworker that I work with. Okay. And so I finally get to one coworker and I was like, Lord, I just pray for her. And I was like, well, I pray for her son too. And I was saying them by name. I'm not going to say the name, but I was saying them all by name. And then I was like, Lord, I pray for, what's his name? What's her boyfriend's name? And I was like, why can I not? And then I just go, Lord, tell me his name. Instantly, I just heard it. And it literally, it gave me chills right now just talking about it. But it made me start crying because I was I just had to stop. I needed to get out of my head and do what he asked me to do. Because I had been praying for so long about it. But you can't just pray. You also yourself have to change. And you have to do the things that need to be done in order for your prayers to be answered. You can't just be God, I want $1 million and it fall into your lap. You know what I mean? You still have to work for things. And so I was praying that I would get better at praying, but I wasn't praying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're let me pray and somehow.
Yeah. So it made me better at talking to you, but I'm too scared to talk to you.
Maybe better at talking, but I'm not going to speak.
Right. Yeah. And so you have to do it. And so as I was doing it, he showed me his voice,
Absolutely. I think that is one of the hardest things to come by. And, I really had never heard the voice of Jesus or God until I became saved. And I still really sort of diving into the word. Here this past recently, I've been able to like discern what is God and what's not. I get chills down my body when I know. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was definitely from the Lord. Or if I'm like doing something I'm not supposed to do in the back of my mind, and you're like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Like, and
Or
then
your
I'll know.
body literally just feels like
Mhm.
empty.
Or
Like,
sometimes like, I have a really bad problem with being lazy, like really bad. And so sometimes like I'll just find myself like wanting to sit there, but then like myself just gets up. Like I just automatically go and do the thing that's supposed to be doing, except even though I want to be sitting down. I'm like, you have just like changed my whole life, like my whole perspective. But no, yeah, it's really hard to discern the voice of Jesus, and I think it's something that you really do have to work towards.
yeah.
It's hard, but you know when you know.
Because it's also hard to, whenever things get hard,
Mm-hmm.
be like, God doesn't want me to do this.
Absolutely.
But it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean that, because I've been seeing stuff recently that says that the enemy doesn't attack people who are already down. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not walking with the Lord, Satan doesn't care about you because he already has you.
Right.
The Lord doesn't have you. So if the Lord doesn't have you, he has you.
Exactly.
That's the only two options.
Oh,
If you're not walking for the Lord, then you're living for Satan. I mean, that sounds bad, but like, it's the truth. Like,
Right.
if you're not doing and living your life for God, the only alternative is that Satan doesn't care because he already has you. You know what I mean? And so that's not to say that people who don't believe in God aren't going to have hardships, but the enemy is going to try harder on people who believe in Jesus.
Absolutely.
He's going to work on overtime, and he's going to be trying to get you down, and he's going to get you questioning God, and like, he's going to get you to question if there even is a God. Like, that's what he's going to be working on, because he doesn't have to work on these other people because he already has them.
Right.
He needs to work on you. So there's going to be more obstacles in your life sometimes.
Right.
You just got to rebuke them.
Exactly.
Like, get away from me.
I do love that you said, you know, when things get hard, doesn't necessarily mean that you should stop. But you also have to know when it is your time to stop. Like, it is such a fine line to know, like, okay, this is not God's plan for you, and trying to work harder. But, you know, when things get hard, doesn't necessarily mean you give up, but maybe it's a different direction. Maybe it's a different pathway that the Lord is trying to teach you, or maybe he's telling you to wait. Like, it could be saying, you know, hold up on this for a second, and then we'll go and do it. You know, his plan's always greater. And like I said earlier, I had a really, really tough decision to make this past week, and I'm still going through it. And it's been a very difficult, very, very, very difficult thing for me to do, because I mean, it shapes my whole future. Like, so I just kind of, you know, learning to, when things aren't going exactly right, knowing when to stop those things and maybe rethink and say, you know, this might not be exactly what God has planned for me, or maybe he's telling you to wait, you know?
I think it's also important that we talk about, because we've talked about praying,
Right.
but we haven't necessarily talked about, you know, like reading the Bible and getting into the word. And I just don't think that there has been a single time that I have opened my Bible when I was anxious about something and like have not left being like, okay, God.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly that's exactly what you needed me to hear.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I was super guilty about like just opening my Bible to a random page and thinking that that's like what God has to say. And sometimes it is. Sometimes there was one time, and I have already like posted and talked about this, but last year, whenever I was super anxious about paying my taxes, like, I was crying. I was throwing a hissy fit. Like, I was acting like a child about having to pay in my taxes. And I was like, what do I do? And then I go to do my little Bible study because I'm supposed to be so good. And it says, pay who you owe. If taxes, then pay taxes. And I was like, Lord, thank you for me. But it's like, he tells you what you need to do.
He keeps us accountable.
And that's why, like, just praying isn't enough, because, like, it's not going to be as direct. Sometimes it will be, like, me asking for something, but, like me asking what's his name, that's a quick fix.
Yeah.
He could tell me the second. But another part of knowing when he's talking to you is, like, guys, he gave us an entire book. Like, he didn't do this for no reason.
Right.
Like, this is literally a love letter from him where we can turn back to any time to see exactly what he wants us to know. And so like when he was giving prophets like information, it blows my mind to think about like, what if when he was telling them this, he knew that I was going through a situation
Yes. But
so many years
like
later? You
he
know what I
thinks about
mean?
everything. He knows every part of your life, and everybody's life matters.
Yeah.
He created you, and he created a purpose for you. And I think that's why that, you know, in a part of ourselves, we do yearn to be with Jesus, but he chases after us, even if we astray. Like he will leave the 99 to find that one. And I think that's what's so pertinent in today's society is because, you're not supposed to follow the crowd. And it's honestly, it's looked down upon if you don't follow the crowd.
Right.
And it's kind of like, whoa, you're not doing what everybody else is doing. What's so different about you?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, you want to be that difference. You want to have that relationship with Jesus, and you want people to know, like, what does she got in her life that I don't have?
Yeah.
Like, you could be a great eye opener to anyone around you. And, so I just encourage like everyone to, you really have to dive in the word, and, that's where it starts. You have to look in there and dive in and find out what he has for you.
I think that's really good. I don't know if we've talked about this yet. I love the ask, seek, not in Matthew. It says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open for you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be opened.
That's awesome.
So a lot of times it's just asking him.
It literally, oh yes. I have so many stories about that. Like I learned that a few weeks ago. So I had been waiting on this package to be delivered to my house. I'm still telling this story to get down. So this is so simple, but like going off of like just ask and you shall receive, like having that relationship with him, he cares about everything. And so I've been waiting on this package for like a week, and it was over Christmas break. And so I was getting ready to go back to college. And you know how you can like track your package and see, the estimated delivery date is blah, blah, blah. So I was supposed to go back on Wednesday, and the package was supposed to be delivered on Wednesday. And like in my mind, I was like, oh, I really wish I could, get it to be delivered on Tuesday. And I've heard the Lord tell me, ask. And I was like you can control the man.
And you start to feel a little stupid.
Yeah.
You're like, but God, I don't want to ask you. Like, it's that big of a deal. Like, I'm just being whiny.
Yes. Like the mail, like that's just something that, just happened. He was like, just ask. I was like, okay, fine. So I prayed about it, and I got an email literally that Monday saying, your package will be delivered tomorrow, Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my gosh, like he really does care about the small things. It's not just the big, huge, life-changing decisions. He cares about all of them, even the smallest ones.
And I'm going to have to name drop Mimi.
You guys will see our Mimi. She's awesome.
That woman is the best about if I call her and complain about something. She goes, well, Payden, have you asked? No. No. So, and she's like, well, ask. Like, what you doing? Calling me stop. I'm going to fix it. So it's just like, I got a new job this past week, but whenever I was like during the interview stage, it like took a while for them to get back to me. And so I was just like, Lord, I was like dealing with it on my own. And then I was like, people were like, have you asked the Lord? I'm like, yes. Yes, I have. Like, I've talked to him, but like, I've just been kind of praying more just to get the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, Lord, give me this job. Lord, give me this job. And I hadn't gotten it. And so I go, God, if this is not the job for me, just take it out. Like, if I'm not supposed to be doing this, take it out.
Yeah.
I walk back up to pick up my phone, and I got the text saying that I got the job.
That's crazy.
He was literally like, when you say this stuff, I feel like people think that I'm lying.
No,
Let it just happen. He was waiting on me to put trust in him.
Yep.
Exactly. Like he was like, you're not getting it because you're getting it. Like you're getting it because you asked me if you can have it.
Right. Yeah, no, literally. That's like one of the biggest things. Like that is such a scary question to ask. I don't know if any of you have ever prayed that question, or, if it's your will, Lord, then let it be. If it's not, get it out, as Mimi would say. I've prayed that prayer many a times, and there's many times where, it wasn't his will, and it's scary. It's really scary. And once again, I'm bringing up what happened to me this past week because it's literally insane. But I literally prayed, if it's not your will, then don't let it be done. And I've had several indicators that have telling me, like, stop. But that just happens. It happens in a relationship. That happens with jobs. That happens with your career. I mean, like your college career, your, whatever it is. I mean,
Happens with relationships. We both have a similar
yes.
story with this. We want to have the boys on this time, but
So
both
I'll get to hear from you.
yeah, we both kind of have similar stories where we just like
Mhm.
kind of stopped at one point in our life and prayed for the man that we're supposed to marry,
Mhm.
and like boom, and walked
funny.
into our lives. And it's crazy. Like Mimi does this thing that she'll be like, did you pray for it? Or like, did you ask?
Yeah.
Did you ask?
Did you?
Girls that are struggling with finding a man, did you ask God if that was supposed to be your husband?
Mhm.
Or did you, like, do you know he's not? And so you're just too scared
Mhm.
to ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was me a lot of high school. I was like,
me too.
I want him. I want him. I want him. I want him. And then it just wasn't happening. And I was like, why is it not happening? But God keeps you hidden, one. And two, you can't be too scared, because if you're scared to have the Lord in it, then the Lord's not in it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if we're out a minute, then usually we know things. That's like,
Oh, I used to deal with that so much. Like, I can relate to all you girls going through things, because in high school, like, I literally was so scared to have a relationship with Jesus because I thought I was going to lose this boy.
right? I was like,
I'm serious. I literally did not tell one of my boyfriends that I got baptized. Like, that should be a red flag indicator. Like, you probably shouldn't be with this man if you're too scared to tell him you got baptized.
and it's like, you're just Lord. I can't do here. Yeah, hide anything from him. So I try.
Exactly. And it goes back to like having that relationship with him. You can't fully commit unless you just give it all to him. Like you truly do have to surrender your life over to him. And I honestly, when I got saved and baptized, it was one of the biggest things for me. It's like the biggest thing in my whole life. But you start to see a change. And even if you backpedal and you go back to your old ways and your old habits, it happens. Everyone goes back sometimes, and you sometimes relapse, and but God's still there to pick you back up and be like, no, you're my child and you know your purpose. So, I mean, I think growing your relationship with him is like one of the biggest things that I think everyone struggles with, but it's one of the most important things to have. So, did you have any other notes or anything?
Yeah,
that we wanted to talk on?
I do. We kind of wanted to talk about how, there's not going to be a perfect time.
Right.
Like right now is the perfect time.
Yeah.
You have to start now, because you can't fix yourself before you have a relationship with Jesus. Jesus fixes you.
Exactly.
I
love that. I
Like-
learned that the other day.
You really?
Yes, I did.
And so I just came with all the Bible verses. Because, when I'm confused, I open that Bible and tell him to tell me what to say. And so, I've been watching The Chosen.
It's so good.
love that
I
show,
watched
you guys.
it. It's
And
amazing.
so one of my favorite characters is Matthew. So I've been so deep into Matthew
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus asked Matthew to follow him, that night he went and ate dinner at his house. And the Pharisees were asking the disciples, like, why does your teacher hang out with all the sinners and the tax collectors and all those people? And Jesus responded to him in Matthew 12, and he said that it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but it's the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners.
Okay.
And it's just like, that's the whole point, that like, that's why Jesus came.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, he came for the ones that were down, and that like nobody's righteous. Not a single one of us.
No.
So you can't wait to be righteous to have a relationship with him,
Right.
because you're never going to be that.
Right. And I think sometimes too, we struggle, like, if we're never going to be perfect, then why even follow in the first place?
Yeah.
And, honestly, it's a big question, and it's something that you might have to figure out for yourself. But for me personally, I know my life is 10 times better.
Mhm.
Like, even when I was doing all these horrible things and, living a not so godly life, like, I didn't find, like, something was missing from me. Like, I felt like a hole in my heart that I couldn't fill a void with, the whatever it was, there was a hole in my heart that I was looking for. And, he's your completion. Like, he is a part of you. And I know that now my life is 10 times better than it was. And I see parts of him every single day throughout my life. And that's another thing when you start now, like you can, like I said earlier, I took baby steps, and it took me a long time to fully commit myself to the Lord because I was so scared of what others might think of me, or, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to lose this boy? Like, are you sure, Lord, it's really going to be better your way? And so it took me a long time to fully commit. And, I still work on it every day. I still backtrack. And sometimes I go back to old habits and I'm like, you probably shouldn't do that. But, like I said, the Lord's always there to pick you up. And so if you come to him as you are now, then you can work your way and make yourself even better than you were just a day ago. Like by listening to worship, or, seeing the good things in life, doing good deeds, a smile to a person.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's God is in every part of your life. So there's no way around it. Like you said, you can't hide yourself from the Lord because he's going to find you where you're at.
Yeah. He sees everything.
Yeah.
And he hears everything. And yeah. I think one thing too that like really hit me while I was trying to grow a relationship with him was just the whole like living for him. Because once you start getting into the Bible, you start seeing that he's like, even those who say that they believe in me, like when it comes to time, if you didn't do my work, I didn't know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you can't fully know Jesus, but not want to strive to be like him. And are we ever going to be we're never going to be that.
Absolutely not.
But that doesn't mean that we can't share what he says and we can't try and impact everybody's lives and, just make the world a better place while we're here.
And I fully, wholeheartedly believe it starts with Jesus. I mean, if you want to, impact this world, you do have to start somewhere, and it is with Jesus. And I think growing with yourself personally first, and then you can go out and seek others. Start with yourself and, grow to have that relationship with him, and then spread what out to the world. That's what we're called to do. And the Bible specifically says, like, go out and spread my word. And, you can't mess it up. You can do bad things and you can make bad decisions, but God's always going to be there to forgive you. I came upon the verse of Philippians 1:6, and it says, and I am certain that God who began the good work within you will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Jesus Christ returns. So your work's not finished. Even if you feel like you are completely lost and you are the lost sheep and he's coming to look for you, you will always have a purpose, and you will always finish that purpose before he comes and before he brings you to heaven. Like you can still build on what you had, even if you are struggling or you feel like you're living in sin. Like he's always going to be there. So
I think it's crazy too. Like we just live, especially in like a part, like since we're from the South and the Bible Belt, and like everybody says, everyone thinks that they're Christian,
Yeah.
but if you're not like it, when you have a relationship with Jesus, there's a part in your mind that flips and you start to see, like, I can't even stress it enough because of like how much it's changed how I see everything. Yeah. But like your entire like brain chemistry swaps to being like, I'm supposed to be living for the Lord. Like the whole entire universe was created for us to be here to worship God.
Right. Yes. No.
Like there's actually a God.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to wrap your mind around.
It really is.
That like it was all created. And so when people say things like, oh, well, why are you doing that? You're doing too much. Like, oh, you're doing too much. We can never be doing enough.
Right.
He created us.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, well, like you don't have to go to church every Sunday. What on earth could you possibly have that is more important than going and worshiping God?
Right. No, it is crazy, but
it's like I miss church sometimes on Sunday, so everyone needs to hear it. Like, what, Payden, what do you have that's more important,
right,
than going and worshiping God?
And when you get that confliction, you're like, oh, well,
you're right.
I'm sitting on the hot seat now.
Yeah,
but we all do it. We all are guilty of it. It's just part of the thing, going back to what you said about your eyes being opened. I know personally, like, when I got saved, and also it goes back to one of the sermons that I just heard at our church a couple Sundays ago about the blind man who began to see. But actually, like, he tells that story in the Bible, but I honestly think he could be talking to us. Like, we are blind as people to what he has for us. And so until we open our eyes and see what he has for us, we won't ever know.
Mhm.
You know, seeing things in a whole different light is when you form that relationship with Jesus and you look at every single aspect of your day and you think about him. And that's one of the biggest changes that I've seen in myself in the past year is I put Jesus in every part of my life.
Yeah.
Like every part. Like I see him as I drive down the road or, as I'm doing schoolwork. Like that's a crazy thing, but you see him everywhere when you form that relationship and that bond.
Yeah.
So
It reminds me of when Sadie Robertson said, like, what I do is I start my prayer every morning and just
I
never
love
end
that.
it,
I
you
love
know?
that.
And that's a great way to keep him involved in everything that you do
Mhm.
because it's just never ending. Like he cares about the little details. Like there's nothing that he doesn't seem or he doesn't see important enough for you to talk to him about.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of us just don't know where to begin and
Begin where you are.
Yep, begin where you are and, try and read your Bible. Get a good devotional. Literally, like I am reading one, it's a Jesus Calling. I don't know exactly what the title of it is though. And I read it every morning and I literally am like conflicted each morning. I'm like, this was
Yeah.
made for me. Like he is sent to me. And so like just having those little reminders, honestly, is something that can keep you going throughout the day and, starting that relationship with Jesus or just pray and ask him, you like, I want to start a relationship with you. I want it to be good and I want it to be pure. So, open my heart and open my mind, I can't preach this enough to just start where you are. Come as you are. He says to come as you are. And honestly, too, he will always use anything that you've ever been through in life for good. Like he take what the enemy, like that song, he takes what the enemy uses for evil and he makes it for good. And so, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason and his reason is always better. So make that jump and know what you're missing there.
There's also like different things that you can do. Like if you want to use that you're not a good reader as an excuse, like our cousin sent us on Spotify, there's like a lady who goes through the Bible and speaks it.
Yeah.
And so like you can listen to podcasts, you can watch The Chosen if you like TV shows. That is like,
It's so good.
like insanely amazing.
That's how The Chosen rates, but like not sponsored. Yeah, sorry, not sponsored by The Chosen. Right. Watching him like perform these miracles and like actually seeing what Jesus did, like it's
Or that he was also like human.
yes, it's like you don't envision Jesus like cracking a joke or like stuff like that, but he was so like in the show, he's very like I don't know, almost sarcastic, but he is.
He has like a
Funny.
good sense of humor.
Yes, and I love it. It just gives you a whole different perspective of God. Like you're like, wow, like
He's not as
scary.
Like we're supposed to fear God, but we're also supposed to love God because
Right.
it's like almost like it's a father type relationship.
It is.
Like you're scared of your dad, but that doesn't mean that you're like just terrified of him. Like you still joke around and you still get to like have fun times with him.
Oh yeah, I think the father relationship it's a good scare. Like it's not like
It's a respect.
yes, it's a respect. It's a mutual relationship. Like you want to do good because you want to please him.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you want to please him? Because he literally paid yours. Like one day we're gonna go to heaven and rejoice with him. Like, it's just why wouldn't you want to start and do good for him? And it's totally awesome when you do because your whole mind and whole heart is open to what he has planned for you.
And I just feel like I've had such a like more optimistic look on life. Like you don't let the little things get you as much because you give the little things to Jesus.
Right.
Like
Yep. You give everything to him because, you don't worry about it, which of course we're human. We're all going to worry about things. But, when you give it over to him and you just surrender it to him, it works out every time, every single time. Like, I don't think I can look back on my life and, think of a time where it didn't work out. It may not be what I had wanted at the time,
literally though.
but it works out in the end. Like I have something better. Like that boy I told you that I couldn't even tell that I got baptized to. He would not let me with him now. I would not pay you. No. I know. what? God sends you something better. Like, Tanner, my fiance, I couldn't ask for a better person. Like, I'm like, thank you, Lord. Like, thank you for sending me him.
And because you prayed for him and
Yes.
God picked him, not you.
Exactly. Pray that scary prayer, ladies. Pray it. I have
And what do you have to lose?
Exactly.
Something bad. Like, that's
Yes.
all that it is.
Yes, and you're only getting something so much better. Even though it may seem scary at the time and it may, break your heart at the time, just trust him because his way is always better. Every time. Every single time.
And I think there's a lot of, too, we should deep dive, maybe even like its own episode on like how God has a plan for you, but there's also free will.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like,
It's a fine line, but they always end up meeting up together.
Yeah.
Because usually your passions are what God has planned for you. Sometimes they're not, but you usually find out a better passion, something that you find out you're even more passionate about with his plan.
It also goes along though with what we're talking about, how like you have to get up. Like, it's not necessarily that like God hasn't chosen. He just knows how it's going to end.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like he didn't sit there and choose for me to come to him, but he gave me all the tools to be able to do it. So
Right.
like my life could be different right now. Like my life would be different if we didn't start this podcast. My life would be different if we didn't, if I didn't, like if the first things didn't happen, like it's like a domino effect. And so like, even though there's a plan that he already knows, it doesn't mean that like he didn't pick out each piece of the puzzle
Right.
because like you still get the choice
Right.
to do things.
Right. And, he may give you, free will and he gives you options and maybe all those options could lead to what he has planned for you. But, in the end, he's got you. He's going to catch you if you fall. He's going to pick you back up. And, you
have to ask.
You do have to ask. And it all starts with a relationship with him, honestly. Is there anything else that we want to add or?
No, I think we've spit a lot at them. And it's probably, we're going to watch it all back and it's just going to be random stuff. It probably needs its own episode. But,
Hey, that's okay.
to have a relationship with Jesus means everything.
Yes,
so
it really
we probably
does.
covered everything broadly.
We did.
But
But honestly, it's the root of everything. Like,
It
literally, you have to have a relationship with Jesus to start growing on any of the other things. So if we could leave you with anything, it would be to, start reading your Bible. We encourage you to, seek a friend. Maybe you guys can do it together. Like, grow in the Lord together. Pray those scary prayers because in the end,
and if he tells you to get down on the floor and pray out loud, do it.
do it.
Or he'll break your car.
But we really hope you guys enjoyed our podcast today, and we hope to see you all soon, and we can't wait for so much more.
We love you, and remember that you're more precious than rubies.